Something is wrong. Something has been wrong for a long time, and last night in front of the cameras on the biggest civilian stage of her entire life, the whole internet finally saw it with their own eyes. Because at the exact second Claressa Shields stepped into history, at the precise heartbeat she was being immortalized inside the American Museum of Natural History in New York, the woman regarded as the greatest female boxer to ever lace up gloves had to turn to the man standing right next to her and ask, out loud, in front of strangers, in front of cameras, in front of the world, for him to please take her picture. Read that again. The greatest of all time, on the night of her induction, on the night that will outlive every fight she ever had, on the night that will be replayed at her funeral one day, had to verbally request a photo from her own partner. And the moment that clip hit the timeline, social media did not just react, it detonated. Because what people heard in those 3 seconds was not a small couple's moment. It was the sound of a pattern. It was the sound of something a lot of women instantly recognized. It was the sound of what we are about to name, define, and unpack tonight. A phenomenon I am officially calling the lonely crown. The curse of being elevated, celebrated, and surrounded, yet quietly carrying every single soul standing next to you. And before we step inside the story, before we walk into the texts, the receipts, the rent payments, the cars, the chinchilla fur, the $1,400 shirt, the blocked numbers, the op messages, and the chilling confession from her own sister, I need you to do one small thing for me. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on every notification this platform offers, and if this story moves you, drop a super thanks, because what you are about to hear is not gossip. It is a study. It is a mirror. And by the time we are finished, you will never look at a celebrity relationship the same way again. Let us walk into the room. The American Museum of Natural History in New York is not a nightclub. It is not an after party. It is not a press junket. It is a literal cathedral of human achievement, a building where the bones of dinosaurs share oxygen with the legacy of explorers, scientists, and once-in-a-generation human beings. To be inducted into a space like that is the kind of accolade most accomplished people will never even sniff in their entire lifetime. And on this particular night, Claressa Shields, the woman who calls herself the GEOAT, the fighter who has stacked Olympic gold medals like loose change, the boxer who genuinely changed the financial ceiling of women's combat sports, was being placed there forever, stamped into the marble. And as she stepped to the camera, draped in a red and pink Fendi chinchilla fur that she made certain no one on this planet had ever worn before, layered in Van Cleef and Bulgari, estimated by her own mouth at $90,000, with a Salida Promotions chain, a Whoppy Records chain, and what she affectionately calls her glow chain, the title of the moment fell out of her mouth like a punchline she had been saving for years: The Art of Winning. She smiled. She said, and I'm paraphrasing the spirit of it, who else would know more about winning than her? And honestly, she is not wrong. The resume speaks, the medals speak, the pay-per-view buys speak. But then, somewhere in between the chinchilla and the diamonds and the gold, a small sentence escaped her lips that nobody, not a single soul in the room, could have predicted would become the headline of the entire evening. She turned and said, "Seriously, let me get a picture." And in that instant, the room tilted. Now, I want you to sit with that for a second, because I know some of you are already typing in the comments, "Bro, it's just a picture, who cares?" I hear you. I respect you. I am even going to defend that position for one paragraph because fairness matters. Couples ask each other for photos every day. Husbands fumble with phones. Boyfriends miss the angle. That happens. That is human. Nobody on earth is calling for a man to be exiled because he didn't whip out a cannon at the perfect millisecond. But what shook viewers was not the request itself. It was the context surrounding the request, because the man standing beside her was not a random guest, not a publicist, not a stranger. He was Papoose, a grown veteran rapper, a public figure, a man who is repeatedly photographed at her side, draped in a Frank Lucas-length mink coat, RTA jeans, and a shirt he proudly told the camera cost $1,000, until Claressa, almost reflexively, corrected him on camera and said no, it was actually $1,400. That single correction, that tiny financial edit, did something to the timeline that no marketing team could have engineered. It planted a seed, and when that seed met the photo request 3 minutes earlier, the internet did the math out loud. The question that erupted across every comment section was brutal in its simplicity. If this woman is the centerpiece of the entire night, why does she have to verbally beg the man next to her to document the biggest civilian honor of her life? Why isn't he already filming? Why isn't he already 3 steps ahead? Why isn't he the loudest cheerleader, the most obsessed photographer, the proudest hype man in that building? And here is where the conversation stops being about a photo and starts being about a pattern. This is the lonely crown. Pay attention. I am defining a term you are going to hear used 1,000 times after tonight. The lonely crown is the strange, silent burden carried by ultra-successful people, usually women, but not exclusively, who fund, fuel, house, transport, dress, and emotionally subsidize the very people who are supposed to be celebrating them. They wear the crown, they sit on the throne, they cut the checks, and yet, on their biggest night, they are the ones reaching for the camera, asking for the picture, hyping themselves up, congratulating themselves through their own mouth, because nobody in the inner circle is doing it loud enough, or fast enough, or freely enough. The crown is on their head, but the celebration around them is quiet. And once you see the lonely crown, once it clicks, you cannot unsee it in any rich, powerful, or famous person again. Now, let us frame the characters properly, because this story has more layers than people realize. At the center, you have Claressa Shields, undisputed champion, business owner, label founder, and, according to multiple people in her own orbit, the financial spine of nearly everyone close to her. Then you have Papoose, her partner, a man who has consistently been seen at her side, a man whose own admissions on camera have raised more questions than they answer. And then you have the supporting cast, Nigeria, the friend living in her house, Bree, her own biological sister, and even the ghost of Tony Rich, the ex-fiancé she walked away from for reasons that suddenly, in light of everything else, start making a chilling kind of sense. Each of these characters orbits one gravitational center: her wallet. And whether that is fair or unfair, accurate or exaggerated, is the exact debate the entire internet is now having in real time. Let us go back to that red carpet exchange, because nothing on the internet exists in a vacuum. When the interviewer asked Papoose what he was wearing, he confidently said the shirt was $1,000. Confidently, smoothly, with the cadence of a man who has rehearsed the price tag. And then, almost without thinking, Claressa stepped in and corrected him. $1,400. $4 extra $100. It sounds small. It is not small, because what viewers immediately read into that correction was not a price dispute, it was a receipt holder. It was the energy of a person who remembers what something cost because they were the one who paid for it. Whether that is true, whether that is fair, whether that is even what happened behind the scenes, that is for the audience to decide. But perception is its own currency on the internet, and in that moment, the perception that Claressa is the one citing the cards became cemented in thousands of comment sections. And once perception locks in, no PR team on earth can unlock it. But the photo and the shirt were only the appetizer. The real mail arrived when a woman named Nigeria, who has gone by Nidego online, allegedly released private text messages between herself and Claressa. Now, I want to be careful here, because these are still allegations. Screenshots can be doctored, context can be stripped, and we are not a courtroom. But according to what Nigeria put into the public sphere, Claressa had allegedly blocked her, and Nigeria, by her own admission, was texting Claressa from different numbers to keep the conversation alive. The messages, if real, were not friendly. Claressa allegedly called Nigeria an op, short for opposition, meaning enemy, and told her to stop texting her phone, calling her a weirdo. Nigeria fired back and called Claressa the op. Claressa, according to the screenshots, then unloaded a string of insults so heavy that viewers said the words read less like a fight and more like a person yelling into a mirror. And many of you in the comments have noticed something fascinating about Claressa's comeback style. When she insults someone, the description she uses often sound oddly self-referential, almost as if she's arguing with a shadow version of herself. That is not me saying that. That is the running observation in thousands of replies. Whether you agree or not is your call. Here is where the story goes from messy to genuinely jaw-dropping, because while Nigeria is allegedly going back and forth with Claressa, calling her names, attacking her publicly, and treating her like an enemy in the digital town square, Clarissa's own sister, Bree, stepped forward with a revelation that left the comment section frozen. According to Bree, for 7 straight months, Claressa has been paying Nigeria's rent. 7 months. Every single month. Quietly, without a press release, without a receipt being waved in anyone's face. And on top of that, the car Nigeria is currently driving was allegedly purchased by Claressa as well. Let that breathe for a second. The person who is, according to the screenshots, calling her an op, attacking her name, and dragging her online is allegedly sleeping under a roof Claressa pays for, driving a car Claressa bought, and eating in a city Claressa moved her to. If those details are accurate, this is not a friendship. This is a hostage situation dressed up as a sisterhood. And then Bree, the actual blood sister, did something extraordinary. She told the truth on herself. She admitted that when she and Claressa had their own falling out, Claressa kept paying her rent through the entire silence. She admitted she was broke when she moved south. She admitted she used to feel that Claressa was closer to her friends than to her own family. She admitted she ran her mouth on social media and only stopped because, in her own words, the financial lifeline came to a screeching halt the moment the disrespect went public. And then she said the sentence that everyone needs to hear because it is the thesis of this entire story. If it had been her in Claressa's position, she would have removed Nigeria from the house a long time ago. But, she said, that is not who Claressa is. Read those words slowly. That is not who Claressa is. Because what Bree is really telling us, between the lines, is that Claressa keeps people around long after they've stopped earning the right to be there. She funds them, houses them, transports them, and absorbs their disrespect. That is the Lonely Crown speaking. And just when you think the story is full, it grows another layer, because tucked inside Claressa's own past interviews is a quiet confession that suddenly hits like a freight train when you replay it in the context of tonight. She has openly said, in her own words, that she wants marriage, that she has been engaged before, but that she no longer wants to walk down an aisle and commit to forever with somebody who cannot match her energy. She said plainly that whatever she gives must come back to her. She said she has spent years putting her own desires aside to make other people happy. Relationships, family, friends, all of it. She said everyone wants her time, everyone wants her money, everyone is looking for her husband. And she said it with a small laugh that sounded a lot more like a sigh. That, right there, is not a celebrity quote. That is a confession. That is a woman publicly diagnosing her own Lonely Crown years before the photo moment ever happened. And then she said something about Tony Rich, her former fiancé, that you cannot unhear once you have heard it. She said he was smart, but he was not her type. She said he would find someone else. She said, hopefully, that someone would be from Atlanta, because in her opinion, the women in Flint do not have anything to offer him anyway. That is a woman who has chosen, repeatedly, to walk away from the people she has outgrown, even when walking away costs her the white dress, the aisle, and the ring. Now pause, take a breath. Because before we go any deeper, I want to ask you something directly. Be honest with yourself in the comments. If you accomplish something life-defining tomorrow, a graduation, a promotion, an award, an induction, how loud would your partner be? How fast would the camera come out? How many videos would they take without you having to ask once? Because the entire internet is doing this exercise right now, and the answers are uncomfortable. Some of you are admitting that you have begged for that energy. Some of you are admitting that you stopped expecting it. And some of you are admitting that you are the one not giving it, and tonight is the mirror you did not ask for. That is why this story is spreading like wildfire. It is not really about Claressa. It is about every quiet provider watching her, recognizing themselves, and finally feeling seen. And if you are still here with me, smash that like button one more time, because we are walking into the part of the story most channels are too scared to touch. Let us be adults about this. Papoose is a respected name in hip-hop. He has put in years. He has earned a reputation as a writer's writer. Nobody is here to erase a man's career, but the conversation on social media is not about his bars. It is about a clip allegedly attributed to commentary around the couple where the financial dynamic was discussed openly. In that clip, the language used suggested that Claressa pays the mortgage, that Claressa handles the car insurance, that Claressa handles the car note, and that flights and hotels have been covered by her for so long long, the other party could not even remember the last time they paid. Now, I want to be extremely careful here, because clips can be edited, sentences can be flipped, and what sounds like a confession in one tone can be a joke in another. We are not declaring anything as absolute fact, but that audio, paired with the photo request, paired with the shirt price correction, paired with the rent revelation, paired with the car revelation, paired with Claressa's own past words about wanting a partner who gives as much as she does, that is not a coincidence anymore. That is a pattern, and patterns do not lie, even when people do. So, let us return, finally, to the photo, because now you understand why 3 little seconds at a museum became a global conversation. The picture request was not the story. The picture request was the symbol. It was the public, visible, audible proof of what people online had been whispering for months, that the woman with the crown is the woman with the camera roll empty, the woman with the receipts, the woman with the lease in her name, the woman with the keys to the car, the woman with the chinchilla on her shoulders, and somehow, still the woman who has to ask. And that is the most quietly devastating sentence in this entire story. She had to ask. The greatest had to ask. And once the internet heard that, it could not be unheard. Now, in fairness, because fairness matters when you're dealing with real human beings and not cartoon characters, there is a strong argument that the internet is overreading this entire situation. Maybe Papoose had already taken 20 pictures earlier that day. Maybe he was holding her bag. Maybe he was watching her back in a crowded room. Maybe the relationship is full of small acts of love that no camera ever catches. Maybe Claressa is the kind of woman who jokes that way because that's how they talk to each other. All of that is possible. All of that is fair. And if any of it is true, then the internet owes both of them a softer reading. But here's the brutal truth about being a public figure in 2026. Perception travels at the speed of light, and reality has to chase it on foot. By the time the nuance arrives, the narrative has already been carved into stone. And this is the part I need you to lean in for, because this is where the story leaves Claressa and Papoose and starts being about you. Every single person watching this video knows someone or is someone who has worn the lonely crown. The friend who always picks up the check, the sibling who pays the family bills, the cousin who gets the cars fixed, the partner who books the trips, the one who organizes the surprises, the birthdays, the funerals, the moves, the rent, the rescues. And when their moment comes, their graduation, their promotion, their wedding, their win, the room around them goes strangely quiet. Not because nobody loves them, but because the people they have funded have grown so accustomed to being on the receiving end that they have forgotten how to give. That is the lonely crown. And once you see it, you will start noticing it in your own life. Maybe in your relationship, maybe in your friend group, maybe in the mirror. So let us put it to the audience. Do you believe Claressa Shields is genuinely surrounded by people who love her or surrounded by people who depend on her? Do you believe Papoose was simply caught in an awkward camera moment, or do you believe that picture request told us everything we needed to know about the energy of the room? Do you believe Nigeria's alleged messages are the work of a frustrated friend or the work of someone who has gotten too comfortable in a house that is not hers? Do you believe Bree's confession was a sister telling the truth or a sister rewriting the past to make herself look more loyal than she was? Drop your verdict in the comments. Do not hold back, because the only thing more powerful than this story is the audience that decides what it means. But before we close, hear this carefully, because if you only take one thing from tonight, take this. The Lonely Crown is not a tabloid headline. It is a warning. When the most successful person in any room becomes the unofficial Ank, the unofficial landlord, the unofficial driver, the unofficial therapist, and the unofficial cheerleader for everyone around them, they will eventually find themselves standing in a museum in a fur coat in front of cameras, asking the love of their life to please, please, please just take their picture. And no amount of money, no amount of medals, no amount of chinchilla can fill the silence that follows that sentence. That is the real story. That is the real headline. That is the real lesson buried inside 3 seconds of red carpet footage that no algorithm could have predicted would shake the internet. So here's what I want from you. If this story moved you, hit that like button until your finger leaves a print. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the next part of the saga is coming, and trust me, it's going to be louder than this one. Turn on notifications because timing matters. Drop a super thanks if this hit home. And most importantly, leave a comment telling me whether you have ever worn the lonely crown. Whether in a relationship, in a friendship, in a family, in a job, or in a season of life you are still trying to walk out of. I read every single comment. I see you. And the next time we sit down together, we are going to dig even deeper because there's more coming on the Shields camp, more coming on Nigeria's situation, and more coming on a side of Papoose's timeline that nobody is talking about yet. Until then, take care of your crown, guard your peace, and never ever apologize for being the person in the room who built the room. I'll see you in the next one.